And I got to pin myself. All right, next principle is, and I see you're taking notes. Awesome. Write them down. It will help you remember them. And you could do that because you know you're awesome. So see, I worked that right in there for you, Noah. So next principle is authority. So this is one from the original book that they've now updated and done again. So it was at a public Xerox machine in a library. Somebody was making copies. And their actor came up and said, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine? Trying to cut ahead, cut in line. 60% of the people said yes. Now, the interesting thing was the next one was, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the machine because I have to make some copies? Now, that should not make a difference, right? Of course, you have to make some copies. That's why you're at the Xerox machine. That is, it is sole purpose in a public library is to make copies. However, adding because, and even a nonsense answer, because I have to make some copies, went up to 93%. That was in the original book. They did the study again, and the new version is, excuse me, I have 5 pages. May I use the Xerox machine because I'm in a rush? Implying the other person isn't, but because I'm in a rush, which took it to 94%. So it squeezed out an extra percent. It's the because, may I use the Xerox machine because the word because is almost more important than whatever comes after it. Now, this was a study they did in Texas. They had a jaywalker, guy just walk across the street when the light was red. When he wore a work shirt and ripped jeans, nobody followed him. When he jaywalked with a suit and tie, 80% of people followed him. Still walking across the street against traffic at a red light, but because he was wearing a suit and tie, other people jaywalked with him. The next principle is liking. Waitresses who mimic the verbal patterns of their customers increase their tips. How much? Let's do our guesses. Let's see who comes the closest. Give me a guess in the chat box. Kristen says 40%. Garrett says 40%. Mudsy says 40. I'm going to do a statistical study and see if based on the first answer that someone gives, if that affects the answers that follow it. So if Kristen does 40, do we get more closer to 40? If she started with 5%, would we get more lower answers? I'm going to do my own statistical study right here. The answer is they doubled their tips, 100%. If I was tipping $5, now I'm tipping 10. Now, what happens when the waitress do a smiley face and their name on the receipt? How much did their tips go up? New guess. I'm not mimicking your verbal style. I'm only drawing a smiley face. And Seth, well, I'm not a waitress. I'm only drawing a smiley face and Emma, if I'm Emma, on the receipt. Richard says 1,000%. Garrett says 80%. Kristen says 20%. That's interesting. Howard went with 20% right after Kristen did. Coincidence? I don't think so. Courtney says 5% or none. 57% their tips went up by drawing us. Now, if you could imagine, they didn't do a third part of the study, which I would want to see, which is now mimic the verbal style of your customers, draw a smiley face and your name on the receipt. You might end up tipping more than the meal cost.
The smiley face thing doesn't work for me.
Well, that's because you're a cranky something or other.
I'm grouchy.
Yes. I still remember when we used to have, before COVID, when Mastermind was in person, and we did one at the Comedy Improv Theater, and you were one of the volunteer subjects, as I was, with the improv actors, and you told the lady who was one of the actresses, you were like, "Ooh, your face is scary," or you're scary or something. And she said, "No, that's just my face." Like, we actually tried to hire her, but it didn't work out because I felt so bad. All right, hairdressers, when asked, "Hey, what hairstyle should I get?" When they answered, instead of a style, instead of "you should get a bob" or "you should get highlights," said any style would look good on you. How much did their tips go up? Give me a guess. Kristen says 40. Look at that. Bruce then says 42. It's working. My statistical study is working. Whoever answers first affects everybody else's answers. Now someone's going to say 2% just to prove me wrong. 37%. Just by saying any style would look good on you. 37%. When told a bottle of wine was more expensive, drinkers reported liking it better, and scans of their brain showed increased activity in the pleasure centers of their brain. They literally gave them the same bottle of wine twice. Once they were told with different labels. Once they were told it was like a $20 bottle of wine. Once they were told this bottle of wine is $200. The people told it was $200 not only said they liked it better, but their brain agreed. Their brain pleasure centers increased based on their perception of price. Yes, placebo effect. $2 Chuck, says Courtney. Yes, I'm sure. Yes, or Pabst Blue Ribbon, right, for the beer. Placebo effect, absolutely. We automatically assume you get what you pay for, and something expensive must be better. So more than worth the cost of admission is the lesson right now for all of you to go raise your prices. Clients who are willing to pay higher prices will be usually are easier to deal with and lower maintenance because they perceive they got what they paid for. At a Tupperware party, one of the games played is bingo, but you can't yell bingo when you win. You have to yell Tupperware. And they changed it because when they have people yelling Tupperware multiple times throughout the evening because they're playing bingo, their sales go up. When it was regular bingo and you yelled bingo when you won, they didn't make as much money. When they switched it and said, let's start having them yell Tupperware, even if it's just 3 winners, yell Tupperware, the sales go up if they don't change anything else. All right. The next principle is scarcity. People want what they perceive they cannot have. Guys, if you remember back, if it was long enough ago, if you were single, as soon as you got into a relationship, you got more attention from other women. Right? No woman wants a man that no other woman wants. I personally found as soon as I had met my wonderful wife, we weren't even engaged yet, we were just dating, all of a sudden, maybe it was the happiness, who knows, radiating off of me, but I had people interested in me who were not interested in me before. I was like, where were you 6 months ago? You weren't interested then. So kids were asked to rate how delicious a cookie was. In one group, the cookie jar had 10 cookies in it. In the second group, the cookie jar had 2 cookies. They were all the same cookie. Which cookie did they rate as tasting better? Give me your answers in the chat box. You have to participate in order to win. 2 cookie jar, less cookies. Yes, you're absolutely right. The jar that had 2 cookies in, they thought tasted better because there were only 2 cookies. The highest paid, Courtney is just being a contrarian today. He's just saying the opposite. The highest paid waiter at Ruth's Chris makes over $83,000 a year. And he has been he refused a promotion to management 6 times in a row and told them to stop asking. Here's what he does. As soon as the first person at the table offers, he looks over his shoulder, then looks back and whispers, I'm afraid that is not as good tonight as it normally is. Might I recommend the blank? And he picks something that's cheaper than what they were going to order. What does that establish? Unmute yourself and tell me. Take a guess.
Definitely rapport.
Yep, certainly got rapport. What else has he got?
Authority.
Authority. What else has he got?
Trust.
Yes.
Trust.
He's on their side. So then after everybody orders, he then says, would you like me to suggest some wine with your meals? People say yes. He suggests wine. He says, would you like me to suggest some dessert with your meals? And he has another line about the fact that they only have a certain number of these desserts or whatever the dessert is available that the people, when he suggests it. So he says, if you want it, you got to order it now so I can put the order in or we're going to run out. Scarcity. He sells more wine and dessert than anyone in the entire chain of Ruth's Chris nationwide. And they've studied him and found this out. yet they can't get every other waiter in the Ruth Chris chain to do the same thing. Makes me want to go be a waiter tomorrow because I would totally do it. Look, that's not as good tonight. Don't get it.
Real quick, when I lived in Miami, I used to go to a place in Miami Beach for dinner, the old Florida early bird thing, because I was working an early schedule. Always had the same waitress, old Jewish mother type, and she would always tell me what to order because I would say, I think I'm going to have this, and she would say, not very good tonight. Have this instead. And she used to tell me I was her best tipper.
Yeah, look at that. You were her best number. That's really interesting. So one, maybe she read the first version of the book. Maybe she was doing it on purpose. Two, she told you you were her best tipper. And what did that get you to do? Tip more.
Tip more.
Freaking Lutely. That's brilliant. I love her.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So